So what's brought you here today? I just feel like I'm paying too much tax. I speak to my mates and they all seem to be in the same situation as me, paying no tax. They all seem to be driving around looking far more successful. They're telling me they're putting this through. They're telling me they're putting that through. I just don't get it. Am I missing something? Yeah, no, I get it. I've been there before. I was an accountant. It's actually the thing that got me into accountancy. I had this exact same problem. So let me tell you about what I learned over the years. In actual simple terms, there's only really one reason this can happen, and that's because they're making less profit than you on paper. It's not any more complicated than that, because tax is just a percentage in a calculation on whatever your taxable profits are. But there are many things that can affect that. So for example, the obvious things like, are they actually being honest? Just because they've never been caught. So I think we've all spoke to those people that are like, oh mate, I'll just stick this through. And it's never been a problem, mate. It's never been a problem. HMRC have never looked. Just because they've accepted your tax return does not mean they agree with it. It just means they haven't checked it. So there is that. You have got those people that evade tax and you don't know for sure whether they're doing that or not. And sometimes it's not even them that's the problem. Accountancy is actually unregulated. So they might have an accountant that's saying it's okay to put these things through. And sometimes it can be purely wrong. Sometimes it's super aggressive. Sometimes just outdated advice. Tax law changes daily. And also sometimes it's just professional interpretation. So I'm sure if I got another accountant in the room with me here, we could debate tax all day long and there'd be some things I'd say is okay, they'd say is not. And it'd be a great debate. I'm sure you'd love it, but ultimately we might come to a different decision. Now, another couple of reasons this could happen is that they think that they're putting things through. So, you've all sat there and they say, oh, I put this through, I put that through. But quite frequently that happens where you see a client's records and you're like, well, that's not tax deductible, that's not tax deductible, but it's been submitted and it's been bought. But it doesn't mean that it's going through as a tax deductible expenditure. And it's not normal that accountants will often go back and say what they've disallowed, that most of the time the client's only interested in what deductions they've got and lowering that tax bill. So it could just be they just don't know that certain things that they've submitted haven't actually ended up on the tax return. And I think that's far more common on a sole trader tax return because they only see two boxes. With a limited company, you should be able to see what's been put through and what's not because of the way it'd be allocated in your software, but perhaps that's another chat. And then the other thing that's really important here is that sometimes they might be doing something that is completely fine, but it doesn't make sense in your situation. It makes sense in their situation. So for example, if you think of thousands of businesses that we've helped over the years, some of those clients are deducting things that the other one isn't. And it's because in some cases it makes sense. Sometimes they just don't need the extra complexity in one place that you do in another. So for example, you might have some tax bands free that mean actually it's very simple to just do this thing, where in another clients, they need a bit more complex structuring to make sure that they can achieve the same result. But of course, you're never going to know that when you're chatting. Honestly, I'm not sure you'll ever get rid of the FOMO. I think there's always something that you worry about. And I think in an age where we work on social media and everybody's saying that there's ways to reduce tax, you're always going to think, am I doing everything I could be? But I think having these kind of chats with your accountant is important because then at least you get a feel for what's being done and what's not. So I'd always do your research from good sources, not ChatGPT at the moment. And if you feel like maybe your advisor's missing some things, talk to them first, because sometimes they're just not telling you that they're already doing these things. But do know that if you are successful, if you're paying more tax than someone, the chances are you're probably more successful than them. Cheers, mate. I think that just puts my mind at rest. I'll have a chat with my accountant and do some research, and then I'll come back if I get stuck.